Excerpts from Esh-Shahrastâny's Book of Creeds and Sects. The Batiniya, this appellation is affixed to them only because they give out that everything outward has an inward, and every letter of revelation an allegorical sense, which is Surah 3:7 kind of indicates that, but it qualifies things rather than some just basic hermetic running off with whatever you want to symbolize things as. And they have many appellations besides this, according to the language of one and another people. For in Iraq, they are named the Batiniya and the Karamete and the Mazdakiya, and in Khorasan, the Ta'alimiya and the Mulhideh. And they say, we are Ismailiyah, for we are distinguished from the parties of the Shia by this name and this impersonation. Well, impersonation kind of makes it sound, they're just like the Ahmadiyya, they authentically believe what they're claiming. They're not, but you could say they're a type of Shia. Like as I pointed out elsewhere, and other people have made perfectly clear, there's Shia that's Islam, there's Shia that's partially Islam, and Shia that's partially Islam, but it's not, it takes one out of being considered legally Muslim, much less actually Muslim. How can you be actually Muslim if you're not legally Muslim on the outside? Now, the ancient Batiniya have mingled with their system something of the system of the sect of philosophers and composed their books after that way. Say they, respecting the Creator, let him be exalted. As for us, we say not that he is existent, nor that he is non-existent, neither that he is one who knows, nor that he is ignorant, neither that he is one possessed of power, nor that he is impotent. And in like manner, with regard to all the attributes, for vertical affirmation requires the association of him with other existences in that respect, in which we speak of him absolutely, and that is anthropomorphism, or zoomorphism, or other morphisms, right? Shirk, in other words, so that he does not admit of judgment by absolute affirmation and absolute denial. On the contrary, he is the deity of those who stand opposed to one another, and the creator of disputers, and the arbiter between those who differ. And respecting this, they also tell of Muhammad ibn Ali al-Bakr that he said, because he bestows knowledge on the deity of those who stand opposed to one another, and the creator of disputers, and the arbiter between those who differ. And respecting this, they also tell of Muhammad ibn Ali al-Bakr that he said, because he bestows knowledge on the knowing, it is said that he is one who knows, and because he bestows power on the powerful, it is said that he's one possessed of power, so that he is one who knows, one possessed of power, in the sense that he bestows knowledge and power, not in the sense that knowledge subsists in him and power, or that he is qualified with knowledge and power, but it is said respecting them that they are deniers of the attributes, who despoil the divine essence of the attributes, power, not in the sense that knowledge subsists in him and power, or that he is qualified with knowledge and power, but it is said respecting them that they are the deniers of the attributes who despoil the divine essence of the attributes. Now, in Sunni and Shia narrations, you find the idea that that the Prophet Muhammad taught that a person's that these are qualities of God. The essence, you don't know the essence of God, but we know God through the perfection of his names or qualities. Say they, in like manner, we say with regard to eternity, that he's not eternal nor originated. On the contrary, the eternal is his Amir and his word, and that which is originated in his creation and his workmanship, he produced by the Amr, the prime intelligence, which is perfect in action, and by the intervention of that, He produced the secondary soul, which is not perfect, and the relation of the soul to the intelligence is either the relation of the genital seed to the perfection of the created form, and of the egg to the bird, or the relation of the child to the father, and of the offspring to her who brings forth, or the relation of the female to the male, and of consort to consort, say they, and because the soul yearns after the completion of the intelligence, it requires motion. From incompleteness to completion, and motion requires the means of motion, and so the celestial spheres originate and move with a circular movement as governed by the soul, and after them the simple natural properties originate and move with the movement of directness, also as governed by the soul, and so are compounded the composites, namely minerals and plants and animals and man, and particular souls enter into bodies, and the species of man is distinguished from other existences by peculiar preparedness for the effusion of those lights, and his world stands opposed to the whole world, and an intelligence and a soul which is universal in the higher world makes necessary that there should be in this world an impersonated intelligence which is a whole, and of which the bearing is the bearing of a complete mature impersonation, which they name the natek, and which is the prophet, and an impersonated soul, which is also a whole, and of which the bearing is the bearing of an infant who is incomplete, tending to completion, or the bearing of the genital seed, tending to perfection, or the bearing of the female consorted with the male, which they name the as, which is the legatee, they say, and as the celestial spheres move, as moved by the soul and the intelligence and the natural properties too, in like manner souls and persons move in accordance with laws, as moved by the prophet and the legatee in every age, in a circle of successive sevens until the final period is reached, and the age of resurrection is entered, and obligations are taken off, and rules and laws are unloosed, and these movements of the celestial spheres and the rules enjoined by law are only in order to the soul's attaining to the state of its completion, and its completion is its attaining to the degree of the intelligence, and its being united to that, and its reaching the rank of that as an actuality. And as for that, it is the greater resurrection upon which the compoundings of the celestial spheres and the elements and the composites are unloosed, and the heavens are rent, and the stars are dispersed, and the earth is exchanged for the absence of earth, and the heavens are rolled up like the rolling up of the scroll for the book written upon within, and creatures are reckoned with, and the good one is separated from the bad one, and the obedient one from the disobedient one, and the constituents of truth are joined to the whole soul, and constituents of falsehood to the false shaitan. Could it be shaitan, the transgressor, the misleader, that is false? Because it seems sort of superfluous to add the word false in front of Satan. But and so from the time of motion up to the rest is the beginning, and from the time of rest up to that which has no end is the completion. Or they say there's no statute, nor rule, nor sentence. Of the sentence is a law concerning barter or patronage, or giving, or marriage, or divorce, or wounding, or revenge, or the price of blood, without its counterpart pertaining to the world, by number against number, and bearing against bearing. For the laws are worlds spiritual of the Amir, and worlds are the laws embodied, belonging to the created things, and in like manner, compoundings which respect the letters and the words of Al-Quran are in the way of counterpart to the compoundings of forms and bodies. And as for the single letters, their relation to the composites of the words as bear simples to composites of bodies, and every soul has a counterpart in the world and a natural property with which it belongs, and an impress so far as the property in souls, and also in the consequence of this, science deriving virtue from the words of instruction become also become an ailment to souls, like as ailments deriving virtue from the natural properties belonging to created things, become an ailment to bodies, and God has indeed ordained that something of that out of which it was created should be the ailment of every existence. And on the ground of this equivalence, they go telling the numbers of the words and verses of Quran that calling upon the divine name is the composite of 7 and 12, and that the extolling God is a composite of 4 words in one of the formulas of testimony, and of the 3 words in the second formula of testimony, and that there are 7 segments in the first and 6 in the second, and that there are 12 letters in the second, and in like manner with regard to every verse which admits of their calculating its number, all of which he who is intelligent exercises not his thought upon without coming short of it through fear of his meeting his match. The counterbalancings constituted the way of the men of early times who composed books respecting them and called men to an imam in every age, who knows the equivalences of these sciences and directs to the paths of these positions and definitions. Afterward, the men of the new call departed from this way, when Al-Hasan ibn Sabah proclaimed his call, and was unequaled to the exigencies of this word, and asked help of men, and fortified himself in castles. And the commencement of his going up to the castle of Alamut was in Shaban, in the year 483, of the Hijra. And that was after he had made journey to the country of his imam, and had got from him how to call the men of his age, upon which he returned and called men with the first of a call to the doctrine of the appearance of the rightful imam, taking a stand in every age, and the distinction of the party which obtain deliverance from the other parties in this point, which is to say that they have an imam, and that others have not any imam, and the refined gold of his system after the rejection of that which was said respecting it amounts ultimately in the Arabic language and the Persian language to this in particular. As for us, we shall translate that which he wrote in the Persian language into the Arabic, and there's no fault resting upon the translator, and the prospered is whosoever follows the truth and turns aside from falsehood, and God is the prosperer and the helper. So then we begin with the 4 articles with which began the call, and which he wrote in the Persian, and so I have put into the Arabic. Says he who gives an answer respecting the knowledge of the Creator, let him be exalted, has one of the 2 things to say, either to say, I know the Creator by mere intellect and speculation without need of the teaching of a teacher, or to say there is no way to knowledge with intellect and speculation except by the teaching of a rightful teacher, says he, and whoever answers with the former denies not another's intellect and speculation. For as for him, if ever he so denies, he declares, and the denial is a teaching and a proof, and that which is denied has need of something other than itself, says he, and with the 2 parts are both necessary consequences. For as for man, whenever he gives decisions or makes a declaration, he speaks on his own part or on the part of another, and in like manner, whenever he is bound with an obligation, he is bound with it on his own part or on the part of another. This is the first article, which is a rupture with the men of opinion and intellect. And he states in the second article as follows: since the need of a teacher is established, is then absolutely every teacher suitable, or must there be of necessity a rightful teacher, says he, and whoever says that every teacher is suitable is not allowed to deny a teacher, averse to himself, for as much as when he so denies, he yields the point that there must be of necessity be a reliable rightful teacher. So much for this, and this is a rupture with which the men of tradition. And he states in the third article as follows: since the need of a rightful teacher is established, must there not of necessity be knowledge of the teacher, first of all, and possession of him, and afterwards instruction by him? Or may there be instruction by every teacher without his person being fixed upon, and his right being made clear? And the latter is a coming back to the former, forasmuch as if one cannot walk the way except with one going before and a companion, let there be the companion, and afterwards let the way be trod, which is a rupture with the Shia. And as he states in the 4th article, that men constitute two parties, namely a party who say there is need with respect to knowledge of the Creator, let him be exalted of a rightful teacher, and the fixing upon him and the recognition of him is necessary first of all, and afterwards instruction by him, and a party who take up from a teacher and from one who is not a teacher in every science. And it is clear by the preceding premises that the truth is with the former party, so that as for their head, he must needs be the head of those who hold to the truth. And since it is clear that falsehood is with the latter party, their heads consequently must needs be the heads of those who hold to falsehood, says he. And this way is that which causes us to know the place of truth by truth with general knowledge. And after that we know that the place of truth with special knowledge, so that the rotation of questions is not requisite. And by the truth, he here means only having the need. And by the place of truth, him who is needed. And says he, by the having need, we know the imam. And by the imam, we know the measures of the having need, just as by potentiality, we know necessity, that is, the necessarily existing. And by this know the measures of potentiality in things potential, says he, and the way to the perfection of unity is by the measuring of feather by feather in like manner. Moreover, he states certain articles which have respect the confirmation of his doctrine, either by way of accommodation to or by way of rupture with received doctrines, and most of them are some rupture or other, and insisting upon a demonstration of diversity on the grounds of falsehood and agreement on the ground of truth. One of them is the article of truth and falsehood, and the little and the great. He states that in the world there is a truth and a falsehood, after which he states that as for the mark of truth, it is unity, and as for the mark of falsehood, it is multiplicity. And unity accompanies instruction, and multiplicity opinion, and instruction accompanies the forming one party, and the forming one party, the imam, and the opinion accompanies diverse parties, which accompany their heads. See, the different groups are one thing, but you don't want to be part of the 72 that just merely, oh, it's, about my own personal type, If you inflect the truth through your type and not make it about your personal ways, you're not going to be liberal about it, you're not going to be conservative about it, you're just going to be about it in the way that's best for you. And, directly, not, well, your own taste aren't governing things, in other words. And he lays down the truth and falsehood and the similarity between them on the one hand and the difference between them on the other hand, the mutual confronting in two extremes and the ranking in one of the two extremes as a balance by which he weighs everything about which he disputes, the revelation and inspiration, to make it a transpersonal thing. But it's very personal at the same time. Says he, and I have derived this balance only from the word of testimony, and it's being compounded of denial and affirmation, or denial and exception, says he, so that not one which merits denial is falsehood, and not one which merits affirmation is truth, but that which is weighed the good and the bad, and the true and the false, and the other opposites. And his main point to come back as respects every declaration and word of Al-Quran is affirmation of a teacher, and that as for the profession of unity, it is the profession of unity together with the doctrine of a prophet, while it's the profession of unity, and that as for the doctrine of a prophet, it is the doctrine of a prophet together with the doctrine of an imam, while it is the doctrine of a prophet. This is the end of his system. He prohibited common people, however, from meddling with a matter of science, and in like manner, people of note from examining ancient books, except those who knew the state of the case respecting every book, and the degree attained by men in every science, and in respect to points relating to the deity, he went not with his followers upon his saying, our deity is the deity of Muhammad, says he. Everybody's God is everybody's God, right? Says he, I and you say that our deity is the deity of intellects, that is, that which directs to him, intellect of every intelligent being, but have said to one of them, What sayest thou respecting the Creator? Let him be exalted. As for him is he, and as for him is he one or multiple, possessed of knowledge, powerful or not. The definition of alone is given for answer. My deity is the deity of Muhammad, and he who sent his envoy with the direction, and as for the envoy, he is the director to him. And as often as I've entered in discussion with people on the ground of the premises stated, they have not taken a step beyond their saying, have we then need of thee? Or shall we hear this from thee? Or shall we be instructed by thee? And often as I've been conciliating towards the people in respect of having need, and have said, where is he who is needed, and how determines he for me the points relating to the deity, and what is it which he prescribes in respect to the things which are objects of the intellect, inasmuch as the teachers, as the teacher having no mean intrinsically, and only has meaning upon, because teaches, and ye indeed shut up the gate of science and open up the gate of submission to dictation, and the following of authority, an intelligent being is not content to believe a doctrine without any evidence to rest upon, or to walk in a way without any proof that he should do so. The beginnings of the system have been authorizings to judge, and submissions to authority, but not by thy Lord, who believe will they, until they make thee the judge respecting that which is controversy between them, after which they will not find in their souls any fault pertaining to that which thou determinest, and they will submit themselves with submission. The Aliyah, these are they who are extravagant in respect to the reality of their imams, to such a degree that they put them out of the limits of the creature state and pronounce bearings of the state of deity to be in them. For often they liken to one of their imams to God. Often they liken God to the creature, and they hold to the two extremes of extravagance and curtailment, and their assimilations have only grown out of the doctrines of the incarnationist and the transmigrationist, and the doctrines of the Jews and the Christians, inasmuch as the Jews liken the creator to the creature, and the Christians liken the creature to the creator. And so these assimilations passed into the minds of the extravagant Shia. By extravagant, I'm sure they mean the Rafida Shia, called the rejectors in Shia and Sunni narrations, the ones who exaggerated the status of Ali and such. Abu Bakr and Uthman and some others that would have been with that. At least one of those groups, when one of those sayings was said to have taken place, also too. But also their enemies, see, their enemies, and those who are on their favor, being the believers. And anyways, that's something different. But to such a degree that they pronounce the bearings of the state of deity to be the reality of some of their imams. And anthropomorphism was, as a principle and fundamentally among the Shia, and only went over to some of the people of the Sunnah. Well, the Shia labeled themselves as people of the Sunnah. Sunnah, Ahl Hadith, Ahl Sunnah, Jama'ah. Much of the same titles are passed on in their narrations too. And the system of the Mu'tazila prevailed among the latter. After they saw that it was nearer to that which is objective to the intellect, and farther from the anthropomorphism and incarnation, and the heresies of the extravagance are comprehended in four things, namely anthropomorphism and the coming forth, and the return, and the transmigration. And there are appellations belonging to them, and in every country they have an appellation. They are called Esfahan, the Crimea, and the Qudiyya, and in the Rai, and the Mazdakiya, and the Sinbadiya, and in the Azerbaijan, and the Tukuliya, and in a certain place, the Muhammadiya, and in the Waral Nahar, the Mubayyidiyya. Or is it Mubayyidiyya? The Nusayriya and the Esh-Shahrastâny, they are among the extravagance of the Shia, and there is a sect of them who defend their doctrine and act the part of leaders in respect to their declarations. And there is a disagreement among them respecting the way to generalize the name appropriate to the state of deity, so as to include the imams of the people of the family. They say the appearance of the spiritual in a material body is a thing which no intelligent being denies, whether on the side of good, like the appearance of Jibreel, let peace be to him, by some impersonation, and the being fashioned in the form of one of the Arab race, and the being likened to the form of mankind, are on the side of evil, like the appearance of Esh-Shahrastâny in the form of man, so that he may work evil in his form, and the appearance of the jinn in the form of mankind, the fire beings, the fallen angels. Angel is an ambiguous word, so fallen angel, jinn, unfallen angel, malaika, we're not talking about the same type of creation. So that they may dispute with its tongue. And so on account of that, we say that God, when to be exalted, appears in the form of impersonations, and because there is not, after the envoy of God, let the divine benediction and blessing be to him, any impersonation more excellent than Ali. Let benediction and peace be to him, and after him his appropriate descendants, who are the best of creatures. Therefore, the true God appears in their form and speaks with their tongue and holds with their hands. So then, by the virtue of this, we generalize the name appropriate to the state of deity so as to include them. We affirm this being appropriated of Ali, preferably of anyone else, only because he is given to him specifically aiding from God. So let him be exalted, which is something that connects itself with the hidden sense of mysteries. Said the prophet, let the divine benediction and peace be to him. I judge by the outward, and God has charge of secrets. And by virtue of this, it was the lot of the prophet. Let the divine benediction and peace be to him, to fight with the polytheist, and the lot of Ali to fight with the hypocrites. And by virtue of this, he likened him to Isa ibn Maryam, and said, if men may not have said respecting thee that which they say respecting Isa ibn Maryam, have not I indeed declared respecting thee with the declaration? And often they affirm of him a participation in the envoyship, inasmuch as he said, among you is one who fights on the ground of its allegorical sense, as I fight on the ground of its letter. Is he not indeed the sewer of the sandal? And so that the knowledge of the allegorical sense, and the fighting with the hypocrites, and the disputing with the jinn, and the removing of the gate of Khibar, not by corporeal power, are the most convincing proof in him was a divine part and a sovereign power from his Lord, are that it is he in whose form God appeared, and with whose hand he created, and with whose tongue he commanded. And by virtue of this, they say he was in existence before the creation of the heavens and the earth. Says he, we were shadows on the right hand of the throne, so we gave glory. And then the angels gave glory with our giving glory. And as for the shadows, those forms not casting aside, they are real, and they shine with shining by the light of the Lord, which is not cut off from them, whether they are in this world or in that world. And by virtue of this, Ali said, I am of Ahmed as light of light, meaning that there is no distinction between the two lights, except that one of them precedes and the second is correlate to it or comes after it. Well, I'm passing on the same light, you could say, too. And this provides a sort of association. But the Nusayriya are more inclined to maintain the divine part, and the Esh-Shahrastâny are more inclined to maintain the association in the prophetic office. And they have other disagreements which we shall not mention. Now, a lot of people who say they're Luciferian have gone too far with that in the respect of, you see that rather than manifesting the various qualities, they become like their own god of different qualities, right? So their idea is they worship themselves, whether they're actually worshiping other things, whether they admit it or not. That's what they're claiming. The Bacteria and the constant Jafariya, they're followers of Abu Jafar Muhammad ibn Ali al-Bakr and his son Jafar as-Sadiq. They declare the imamship of both of them and the imamship of their parent, Zayn al-Abidin, except that among them are some who are constant to one of the two and forward not the imamship to their descendants, and some who do forward, and we distinguish this party over and above the sects professing to be Shia, which we shall mention only because those of the Shia who are constant to al-Bakr and declare his return are in constancy like those of the Shia who declare the imamship of Abu Abdullah Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq. And he was a possessor of rare science and religion and perfect in culture, in philosophy, and consummate self-restraint in respect to this world and complete abstinence from appetites. And he dwelt in Medina a length of time, doing much service to the Shia who sided with him and committing to those friendly to him the secrets of those sciences. When he entered Iraq and dwelt there a length of time, he never assumed the imamship nor contended with anyone respecting the caliphship. Khulafa, is that how you say the plural? And whoever plunges into the sea of knowledge is not eager for a shore, and whoever is elevated to the summit of verity fears not the letting down. And there's a saying, whoever has converse with God is empty of men. Whoever cultivates familiarity with others than God, the tempter makes a prey of him. Those stages of love, you love those in authority over you and those under your authority. For the sake of God. You love your friends, your children and parents, your spouse, for the sake of God, on the path of God. And then there's a socially inappropriate stage of love, but that's all something else, sort of a side comment, and was related on the father's side to the stock of prophecy. On the mother's side, he was related to Abu Bakr, like God be gracious to him, and he cleared himself of that which any one of the extravagance had to do with, and cleared himself of him and cursed them, and it was clear of the peculiarities and the doctrines of the Rafida and the fooleries, namely the declaring of the disappearance of and the return and the coming forth and the transmigration and incarnation and anthropomorphism. But the Shia were divided after this day, and every one of them professed a doctrine and desired to pass it on to his followers and referred its origin to him and fixed on him, while the master was clear of that and of the system of the Mu'tazila, and also of the doctrine of the Qadariyya, and his saying respecting volition, namely God, let him be exalted, wills by us something and wills from us something, and so that which he wills by us he hides from us, and that which he wills from us he manifests to us. So then what have we to do to meddle with that which he wills by us, to the neglect of that which he wills from us? And this is his saying respecting predestination, namely, it is a thing between two things, not absolutism nor indifferentism. And he was wont to say in prayer, O God, to thee belongs the praise. If I obey thee, and to thee it belongs to convict. If I disobey thee, there pertains not to me, nor to anyone else, any efficiency in the case of doing well. And there's no convincing on my part, or on the part of anyone else, in the case of doing ill. Now then, we'll mention the sects which differed from each other respecting him, and after this day, not on the ground of being divisions of his partisans, on the contrary, on the ground of their having to do with the root of his stock and the branch of his descendants. And the Mu'tazilites were influenced by Greek philosophy, are per se quotes from Greek philosophy. So, because I don't think there's anything really terribly conflicting about Greek philosophy and Islam, you just have to express the Islamic beliefs and deeds through this method of thinking, which is fine. People mistake philosophy as the quotes, but certain beliefs of the Greeks infiltrated, you could say. And some formulas mentioned are La ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah, and we'll see hinted that the actual scriptures of previous nations, not just what came through Muhammad,